Greetings, brothers and sisters. Monday, January 12th. This video will be up tomorrow afternoon on Tuesday. There's some holy shit stuff I'm going to cover here. So, YouTube recommended a video that they didn't know happened where Candace Owens is talking about Erika Kirk's dating lies, which has been around for about, over a month or so before she posted this. So this has been around for a long time. I guess she posted this 3 weeks ago, but I just, I tuned out from Candace Owens. But it shows what a piece of shit she is. Of course, Erika's a piece of shit too. They both are. And then there's stuff about the ICE agent. His name has been revealed, which I wasn't aware of. Disturbing stuff about that. Bunch of things to get to today. Like a lot of, everything's like this every day, but this is going to be jam-packed. So let's start here, though. U.S. used powerful mystery weapon that brought Venezuela soldiers to their knees during the Maduro raid. It restates the title here. It brought the soldiers to their knees, bleeding through their nose and vomiting blood during the raid to capture Nicolas Maduro, according to a witness posted on X on Saturday. And so that's pretty fucked up. Like, they have these weapons. Trump's been bragging on these weapons. And, these energy weapons are probably a lot to do with here. I guess, is this it? This account from Venezuela security guard loyal to Nicolas Maduro is absolutely chilling. Explains a lot of why the tone across Latin America suddenly changed. One day of the operation, we didn't hear anything coming. We were on guard, but all suddenly our radar system shut down without explanation. The next thing we saw were drones, a lot of drones flying over our position. We didn't need to know how to react. So what happened next? Security guard, all the drones appear. Some helicopters arrive, but there were very few. I think barely 8 helicopters. When those helicopters, soldiers came down, but a small number, maybe 20 men. By those technology very advanced, they didn't look at anything we fought against before. But it was, yes, it was a massacre. We had hundreds, but we had no chance. They were shooting with precision, speed. It seemed like each soldier was firing 300 rounds per minute. We couldn't do anything. It wasn't just the weapons. At one point, they launched something. I don't know how to describe it. It was like very intense sound wave. Suddenly, I felt like my head was exploding from the inside. We started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground, unable to move. And our comrades, did they manage to resist? And so, Trump was bragging about these weapons that we possess. And that's pretty fucked. This came from Stop What You're Doing and Read This, said Carolyn Levitt. So she's confirming that this is what fucking happened, that they have these fucking energy weapons. And don't think they won't apply these to you. They've been working on energy weapons for a long time. And so don't think that they won't apply this to American citizens when you start resisting, and they're not willing to leave your property, when they're kicking you out and trying to put you in FEMA camps. Like everything that they have, they're totally willing to turn this on the American people, which just tells you how fucked it we are and how fucked this thing is. I mean, it'll be a blessing when the system is taken down, because this is the kind of weapons they're creating. And these immature people get into Trump. Trump is obviously senile. He's lost his shit. I got a bunch of stuff to show you about that. We'll come back to that in a bit. So that's the first thing here. I think I have something else about it. Oh, here. Electronic warfare is now a budget line item the public deserves to know. There was some videos about them shooting microwaves at people. These big, discs that they had on trucks. I have some pictures of it somewhere. I'm not gonna pull it up. But there was a simulation that they did, and it was to dispel rioters. In fact, I think they've busted this out a number of times, now that I remember. And they hit you with these microwaves, and they just can get rid of rioters. Look at what's happening now. And when they go to war with the American people, which inevitably every military goes to war with their own people. That's what happens to empires. And so there's that. I'm going to come back to this in a bit. Okay. Okay. Here, let me refresh this here. So Trump is losing his shit, right? Um, and I'm going to show you two examples of this, and then with some. I already showed you one video where the guy was talking about it. You know that there's a certain type of dementia where your brain no longer allows you to swallow, like your brain isn't working and you're not functioning, and you end up. I forget what the term he used, but you end up getting food into your lungs, and then you like die of a pneumonia. Like this is what happens to these people because your brain, and there's evidence to support this. And there's this Marco Rubio thing where Marco Rubio passes him a note. We're going to show you all this stuff, but this is him. This is them contrasting his bullshit here.
On day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
But the word affordability is a Democrat scam.
One of my top priorities will be to quickly defeat inflation and make America affordable again.
I don't want to hear about the affordability.
We will make America affordable again. We're going to make it affordable again.
You know, there's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about affordability. Affordability is a con job.
We will target everything from car affordability to housing affordability.
You know, this whole thing is, they use the word affordability. It's a Democrat hoax.
Starting on day one.
So, yeah. So this, this is just him lying, but he's also losing his shit. I'll show you that. So it's going to start off with a slurp here. He's slurping. And I'm going to come back to this. Right? And
All right, thank you. You'll make it back one way or the other. You're all going to do very well. I think really very well. Marco just gave me a note. Go back to Chevron. They want to discuss something. Go ahead. I'm going back to Chevron. Marco. Thank you, Marco.
look at Marco. Oh, Marco. Think of little Marco. You remember we called him little Marco.
Was there a question, Mr. President?
Yes, go ahead, Marco. What are you saying here?
Mark, if you
increase.
can update us on operations in the ground and with the appropriate approvals, what you might be able to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months.
Look at Trump. He's like all over the place the way he looks. His mannerisms, like this weird mannerism he has. Just watch him here. So as he goes back and forth, like watch him, like he leans in here. Then watch he's going to lean back over there. I know he doesn't listen. He's bored. He says he's bored at all these things. He gets bored at like military meetings and all the shit they're saying. Like he's not into it. But that was supposed to be like a private note. Like he was supposed to look at the note and go, you guys wanted to go, maybe say the thing about Chevron. But that wasn't supposed to be like, hey, Marco, like this guy has to be handled now. Like he's just not sharp. So I think that was either recommended. I think one of my viewers sent me that on Instagram. At the same time, my wife sent me this.
Country, but the cartels are running and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year. The drugs, it's horrible. It's devastated families. You lose a child or a parent. I mean, parents are dying too.
So you hear him slurping there, right?
With drugs.
It's progressing. As you may know, I am a voice and speech professor, and if I heard this with somebody I was working with, I would immediately recommend them to their doctor to get their brain scanned, because this is a symptom of late-stage dementia, because the swallow response is deteriorating, which is causing so much saliva and wetness to come forward in the mouth that he has to slurp it back into his body in order to control it so that he doesn't just end up drooling all over himself.
That's inspiring. Who doesn't want a president drooling all over himself? So this is what happens when you elect 80-year-old presidents once they fucking live on McDonald's food, right? People at 80 years old, they start losing their shit. Retirement, I don't know what it is now, but it used to be age 65. And, depending on your kind of job that you have, 65 is a good time to retire when it's not like a mandatory thing, but you start thinking about it. And, whether people should be able to drive or not. And you have to be able to drive. You have these people who can't see. I'm getting older. Like this is on the horizon. You can't see it well at night. The lights bother you. Things like this. Even when you're wearing glasses, your reaction time slows down. Driving isn't that hard a thing. But when you have senile responses, like Joe Biden was driving his Corvette or whatever he fucking had, And I was like, would you feel safe with Joe Biden driving your kid's school bus? And Trump, you know, I mean, you can say same thing about Trump now. And Trump's losing his shit. And he's making these big decisions, you know, using energy weapons, you know, displaying these things. And, you know, holy shit, right? Like, this is what we're dealing with. And it's clear that he's breaking down mentally and physically.
And really closely throughout this clip, you hear that wetness within his mouth, and it's causing a lot of slurring. Now, we've seen this over and over the past several months, but in this interview, it is so frequent. It is more frequent than I have ever noticed it to be. So if you are one of those people that thinks that dictators live forever, the symptom progression.
Here's she's picture in her book. You know, I showed you this with Joe Biden when a Parkinson's specialist came on and said, you know, there's people who work with these things. And, you know, I can speak from my experience as a counselor and then doing the meditation thing where, you know, the preceptor thing and you read people. And, you know, when you do something for years and years and years, you just see things on a different level. Like it's what I do here. You put in the hours and, you know, you put in the concentration, you practice stuff, and you just get better and better at it. You hone your skills, and you see things normal people who are not experts in something don't see, right? And, you know, this guy he was an expert in Parkinson's could tell you why it was so easy to diagnose Joe Biden. Like he said, a first-year medical student should be able to do it because he was a textbook case. Remember, they had a Parkinson's doctor specialist showing up at the White House, and they blamed some Marine, some young guy, right? Because, you know, the whole thing with Biden. But now you have these experts talking about Trump. And Trump is clearly starting to come apart. He's showing like real poor impulsive control. He's talking about things. I mean, he's always been a blabbermouth, but he's just like all those tendencies get worse. And he's just saying things and doing things that should be disturbing to people. You know, at a time when things are going fucking south quickly, right? What did Santa bring you? They're really memeing the shit out of her. I'm seeing 3, 4, 5 memes a day. You know, people posting on Facebook. I mean, she's just not liked. She's probably the most hated person in this thing. She has maybe a smattering of dumb fucks or, you know, manipulative hoes who thinks what she's doing is okay, or they're just too stupid to see through the act. Or they expect the act. They like the act. But the rest of the people are against her. I want to go to a voiceover here, and I got another picture to show you. Okay, so I have a story and a bunch of comments I want to get to, and then just one comment, and then I'm going to get to, I have some epic comments. I can't remember them all, but I'll get to those at the end of the video. And this one particularly I want to get to when I covered the Erika Kirk stuff, and it's going to segue into Candace Owens stuff to do with Erika J. Kirk. So the person writes, and I'm showing you this picture because it's the, you know, thug shoots unarmed lesbian in the face in self-defense, Erika plus Governor Trump. And the person writes, what is your obsession with Erika Kirk? We all know she's a demon worshiper. Who cares? Do something original. So, and I really wanted to take this motherfucker down. Because he's responding to the picture, right? Because the video has almost nothing to do with Erika Kirk. The video is, I mean, Shabbat Shalom, there's the meme here, right? And somebody sent me that. Or it was just on Facebook. I think it was just on Facebook. Or something. Maybe, you know, who knows. But the video mostly has to do with electromagnetic frequencies, like you can see in the corner there. But that's the picture that will draw views. Like I have to think about when I make these pictures, when I do these little murals, which I enjoy doing. I always like making murals or whatever they call it, collages. Is it called collages? With you know, magazines where you cut out pictures and you paste them together, like National Geographic or something, like when you're a kid. And you know, I'm able to do that here, and I kind of enjoy it, right? But you know, the main thing that this video was about was, you know, the shooting and electromagnetic poisoning, frequency poisoning. And Erika Kirk's always going to make an appearance when there's something because people want to hear that, right? My view count went up when I started covering TPUSK. People are still interested in this thing, and it's funny. So it's obvious I don't have an obsession with her. It's a business decision, and it was a business decision to put her face in the thing here because it's a great picture of her. And there's other woman there who's the future leader of Israel, of Venezuela, who's, you can't see it there, but she's at the Wailing Wall. And so that was about as much of Erika Kirk I covered. It was a couple minutes in a 2.5 hour video. But the person didn't watch the video and didn't find out what the video was about. And, I do have original thought. Actually, there's a comment coming in right now. And I wouldn't call it original thought because, true original thought comes from the divine. People have very few original thoughts. So, but my takes here are quite unique, which I think most people watch my videos would agree with. My take on all of these things is quite unique. So to say those two things just because of that picture shows you have an obsession with Erika Kirk. And you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? But here's the comment I want to read. Somebody said this. I've unsubbed from so many channels over their support of the cop murdering that woman. This is the only channel I've come upon since then that was not bootlicking other than the libtard channels. Yeah, these taint lickers. But they did the same thing when Trump... I mean, I don't know how you guys can still support Trump. I know I've lost a lot of viewers, but I don't care about people like that. They're unreachable. People who fell for the Trump shit and are still falling for it now even more so. He's not that guy. He's one of the most narcissistic, self-involved people in the history of the fucking planet. It is funny. It's actually funny if you just accept him for who he is. I mean, the fact that he was president for the first 3 years was incredibly funny because he is the fucking worst, right? He's a failed businessman, a complete grifter and con artist, and he's got to be president. It's really fucking funny considering that the presidency is a joke. But now, I mean, what he's doing now and what he's done and, what he's being used for, and it just gets old after a while. Just a guy fucking, But he was funny on The Apprentice. He was funny. I was the actual person who liked Trump as a character. I say he's my favorite character as a president for 3.5 years. But then, the way he went out, the 4 years since then, it was just like, please just fucking go away. Your character arc is taking a fucking turn for the worse with the Operation Warp Speed and then all the other bullshit, the election stuff and January 6th and all this stuff. And it was clear the liberals and the liberal media and the Democrats were completely obsessed with him and building their whole platform around him. And then the whole re-election and then everything, the piece of shit he's been since then. And it just has been bad from worse. And he screwed you guys over. Now, it was funny to me because I didn't believe his bullshit. But to you people who believed his bullshit, I mean, the Q shaman is, even he gets it, right? But all these channels that are supposed to be truth channels that are trying to make a case for that, they're just retarded. And, you can watch my videos, but I don't want to hear your bullshit, right? Your comments aren't welcome if you think this was self-defense, even though it's fake and you're still, like I destroyed a commenter yesterday about this thing. So the other thing I want to say is I went to Whole Foods. I did some video work, and then it's a really nice day out. It was cold for a couple days. And I went to Whole Foods. I usually go somewhere early in the week. And, I go to a few different stores there. There's a bunch of stores in a row. And so I go to Whole Foods, and I pulling up, my cart, and I'm kind of in a hurry because my wife and I are going to come back and go for a walk, and she had to do something. And, I'm hustling a little bit more than I normally would. I'm on a time crunch. And there's a glove on the floor. And I say, sir, there's a guy who's probably 70 to 80 to 90, probably 70. Much older than me, just in terms of physical shape, but not, whatever. I go, sir, is that your glove? And he's like, well, thank you. And, he's dropped his glove out. I really miss it when I go touch the cold steering wheel. And I'm like, yeah, all right, bro. But I had two thoughts about it. First, I was like, when do I get to call somebody sir? Not that I want to, but, I've gotten to the point in my life where people call me sir, but more often than not, people call me boss, which, I'm not a boss. I'm not very good at administration. I'm always kind of like a kid and a chucklehead, but for some reason, and they're usually doing it in a mocking way, but I get called boss by cashiers and people like that all the fucking time. Okay, boss. was kind of funny. But I was like, well, I've reached an age where very seldom would I call somebody sir. And then I'm like, I did my good deed for the fucking month, right? So my wife comes home, I come home and she's here and we go for a walk. And I tell her the story and she goes, yeah, did you help him pick it up? And I'm like, whoa. How much do you expect out of me? She goes, well, you said he was like 90. Did he was he able to bend over and pick up his glove? Like, did you help with that? I'm like, hey, you're shitting on my good deed for the month. And so, that's a day life of the day of Paul Romano. All right, let's move on to the next thing here. Okay, so I want to get into this Candace thing with calling Erika Kirk a liar, and these are two pieces of shit, and it's better and better when I can really slam both of them, right? So YouTube recommended this video. It's the Ben Shapiro video she did, which I didn't watch at all. I went back and looked for the stuff to do with the Fort Huachuca. But I mean, I just can't listen to Candace Owens, and I had her Twitter feed up, and I'm like, I'm getting sucked back into her bullshit. So I'm going to cover it to whatever extent I have to, but minimize it. And I'm not going to watch her. I just can't sit through her videos and listen to her. And, like I have an aversion to her. So I was going to click out of her Twitter thing, but this was the top thing that I saw. It was put up yesterday, so I don't know. It must be new stuff today, but this is what I saw. I so clearly remember having a conversation with Charlie about what was happening in Gaza, which he obviously felt morally wrong, but also believed he could somehow broker a peace between differing perspectives. Fuck you. Like, she's trying to bullshit that this guy was an okay guy. Just like with this thing with the cop, right? You just, whatever your political leanings, you have to leave that shit behind. And to be on this channel and to be here and to listen to me, that's what you need to fucking do. Like, even just to spend your bullshit for the time that you're listening to me. Like, I don't care if you listen to me or not. I put out a shit ton of content. I was thinking about it. If I put out 5 videos a week at 2+ hours, we're talking about 10, 11, 12 hours, and then sometimes whispers, sometimes journey series, and then stuff on my other channel, my backup channel. So, and there were times I was putting out 2-hour videos every day. That was, 14+ hours of content a week. That's a lot for people to watch. Like, that's, almost impossible. And, I'm not I could see where people would eventually, like, I just got to stop listening to this guy, right? This, whatever. It becomes too much, whatever it is. That's a lot of time to spend with any fucking buddy, but particularly me, right? So I get it, but there's things that value here that you don't get in other places, at least, most of them. And some of them you won't get anywhere else. And one of the things is you got to leave your political leanings and your prejudices fucking behind. And look at each situation in a fresh way. That's the Sajmark method, right? There was this young guy, and everyone wanted to spend time with the master. And there are people who either they worked and did a lot of work for the mission, or they, donated money, or they did something where they were, they got they got complete access. They'd show up at the gate, and there was volunteer security there at the gate, either in India or, I did this in America. And some people just got to walk in and just sit down, wherever Master Chargy was and hang out with them, whenever he was available. And, everyone wanted that kind of, being in that like VIP club type of thing. And there's a young Indian guy who was talking to me. He goes, I was spending time with Chargy and like I had this great time, and, he was asking me about my life, and I went home. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in, He goes like he knows who I am now, and I can get in there and all this stuff. And the next day he's like thinking all that for like all night the next day. And then he goes in and says hi to Chargy, and again he says, who are you? Right? And so like there's supposed to be this idea of having a fresh perspective. It wasn't an accident that he said, who are you? It's because this guy, it was a sobering moment for this guy. But, a true spiritual person is almost like an innocent child and experiences everything again in a new way. Now, we all have prejudices that we build up over time where we think we know something because we've experienced it in the past. But we always have to be open for something new to happen. That we're not ourselves creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, when you are prejudiced by the left-right bullshit and all these things, you're not able to see truth. And that's why I think, my content stands out here. You're just evaluating this based in whatever your opinion was of the person. And I don't give a shit if a person agrees with me or, likes me or whatever. Like, I'm going to evaluate what's going on and just give you my honest, objective opinion. And, connecting to divinity is a key to this. And so when I first heard about Charlie Kirk, he was agreeing with me, so he was agreeing with many of us believe that it was a recent video where he had talked about how Jeffrey Epstein had to be, most likely was a Mossad asset, right? And so, there was nothing that he said that his beliefs that up to that point, I would say that I disagreed with, right? But I didn't like the guy. I knew the guy was a piece of shit. And Candace Owens should know he's a piece of shit, but she's one of the worst, for somebody she's out there talking about pedophiles at Fort Huachuca and pedophiles that are connected to somehow to TPUS gay. She joined the Catholic Church, which I grew up as a Catholic. My mom was a devout Catholic. But, the Catholic Church has a fucking pedophile problem. But somehow she's pretending that didn't happen. She said Michael Jackson. She hangs out with all these pedos and guys who have been accused of shit, maybe wrongfully. But, Charlie Kirk's a piece of shit. And the reason was, let's get back into it. I so clearly remember having a conversation with Charlie about what was happening in Gaza, which he obviously felt was morally wrong, but also believing he could somehow broker peace between the differing perspectives. I told him to forget about politics. There are basic rules of the jungle. People that will mass murder innocent children and lie about it will murder us too. There's no allying halfway with sheer evil. Why the fuck would it be that they would murder you two? Like, wouldn't it be enough that they're murdering fucking children? Like, she was taking money from Israel, and she worked for Ben Shapiro. And so, like, somehow she turned on Israel, and who knows why. It helped with this whole thing that's happening. She did some kind of positive work here. But Charlie Kirk, what Israel was having was seeing that American liberal youth and American youth in college campuses were realizing what a fucking horror show the Gaza Strip was. And they were turning on Israel. And so they needed somebody and something to combat that. And they found Charlie Kirk, who was willing to go on these campuses and get sheckled the fuck up with hundreds of millions of dollars in shekels. And Charlie Shekels went to these campuses and was debating these kids and trying to talk them out of their right perception that this was a genocide. And that's what Charlie Kirk was willing to do. And whether he thought it was morally wrong what Israel was doing, it didn't stop him from taking the shekels and pushing for example, he said he believed in Israel's biblical land rights when he was talking to Megyn Kelly. And this is when he was starting to turn on Israel. So he was a worthless piece of shit. Somebody who takes hundreds of millions of dollars to convince college kids that a genocide is okay is a fucking piece of shit, right? And he did other shit, but that was a person who's success-driven and money-driven. He's not religious. He's not a good person. He's not America first. He's not Jesus first. He's shekels first, right? He's a Judas and not a Jesus. He took the 30 pieces of gold like Judas did. It's amazing that people don't realize this and they think that America will somehow be kept safe if it keeps cheering on Israel war crimes all around the world, just like Charlie Kirk, you don't want Charlie Shekels, as though the chickens won't come home to roost. Of course it will, as they have done many times in the past. Israel will murder Americans and our offspring too. We are dealing with a biblically murderous tribe that are not in any manner or form guided by the Judaic belief. This is totally guided by the Judaic belief. It's in the fucking Bible, in the Old Testament, and whatever the Jewish Bible's called, not the Talmud or whatever, but whatever it's called. Be sure to cheer this worldwide neocon shit on at your own peril. The biggest part here is she wouldn't admit Charlie Kirk was a piece of shit. And then everything she's doing is worthless, because when you take that many shekels, I don't blame Israel if they murdered him. Like, you don't give somebody, you're a fucking murderous mafia, like, worse than a mafia, like government, like fucking organization, right? You're like this piece of shit organization that does bad shit. And you're paying somebody to cover up that bad shit, right? Someone doesn't give you $100 million over, like, for 3 years straight, buy you buildings and fly you to Israel and butter you up so that you can turn on them and bite the hand that feeds them. Like, that's the shit that gets you killed, right? And if they did kill him, which, who knows what will happen here, then, it was completely justified. Not that murder's justified, but, this is the kind of deal you're making, right? If you took this money, if I took $100 million in shekels, I would know that I don't have it. I've made my choice. My choice is to fucking shill for Israel, right? Like, there's no, oh wait, I'm gonna back out on the deal, but I'm gonna keep the money you gave me. That's not how it fucking works. And so this whole thing is silly, and all the people in it are silly. Candace Owens and Erika Kirk are the most silly. But, it's like she's just so full of shit. Like, she's the worst. Because, she came to the party late. It's good she came to the party. Some of these truther things. But the same thing could be said about Trump and the neocons and all these, the Trumpers and the MAGA people. The same thing could be said about all these people she supported in the past, all the right-wing people. And it could be said about the Christians, too. And so there's nothing here, the Catholics. Like, she's still backing the Catholic organization that's one of the worst pedophilic organizations in the world. And so, become fucking spiritual. Like, break free from all these organizations, but you can't do that and retain your audience. She can't say Charlie Kirk was a piece of shit and retain her audience. But now she's finally saying Erika Kirk is a piece of shit. So this is the video YouTube recommended to me. Okay, so here,
said to myself, what is his investment in this? Why do I feel like he's somewhere along the way implicated in something? Let me clarify. I'm not saying he murdered Charlie Kirk, but it doesn't matter if I said that either way. That's his whole style is to try to sue people out of the free markets because he can't win in the free markets. But yeah, I'm going, what is this? Why do I feel like there's a hook here? And at that time, someone had mentioned to me, hey, did you see what's going viral right now on X? Which is that Erika Kirk lied about having not dated anybody before Charlie Kirk. And actually, I knew that she had dated somebody before Charlie Kirk, and I had never known that she had made that claim, and people were starting to make all of these videos about it and wondering if she had misremembered or whether or not she was telling an intentional lie about her past. Now,
okay, so this is 3 weeks ago, and I don't know, when did Erika Kirk go on the show on CBS, the Town Hall? Working with ChatGTP. Yes, when Erika... So December 13th, she went on this with Barry Weiss. And she made this claim that she hadn't dated anybody in 5 years, right? And so, it's now over a month later, right? And there are people that had it like the next day. I found out about it maybe a couple days later. And so this thing came out, like probably this video here came out maybe like December 28th, the video that Candace Owens doing. So it's 2 weeks after this happened, right? Erika Kirk made that claim, but Candace Owens was in truce with her. Now, Candace Owens has made outlandish claims, but she's always late to the fucking table when it comes to these things. She always withholds information. This was, I don't know when she met with Erika Kirk, like right after that Barry Weiss thing. And so she already knew about this. I'm sure she did, because this was, everyone was talking about this. She has 3 boyfriends, right? One of them was whatever this guy she's talking about. There's this guy called Big George, who was a Kentucky basketball player who played for the Knicks. And when she was in New York, she dated him. And then there was the gay dude that she kind of dated to get out of a reality TV show, which I've documented over and over again. So she's a lying piece of shit, like lying in a way that everybody around her would know because they're part of these people were in her circle, right? And Charlie Kirk knew of her because this is what she says about Charlie.
What I can say is that there does seem to be disparity between her version of events and other people's version of events. Definitively at that meeting, obviously, I've already.
So she's trying to make this with Fort Huachuca, and so, but you could say the same thing about Mitch Snow, even worse. That guy's like such a fucking dumbass liar about these things, like his recollection of the events of his wife and him, and the hammer incident, where she broke his thumbs and his feet, and hit him in the back of the skull, and he came out, and the cops arrested him. When we saw the video, that hilarious video of it, like he loses all credit. You guys, none of you guys have credibility. You're all caught lying, like as a default position. Like your default position is to lie, all you guys. And like Candace Owens lies by, if she's with somebody or she's connected to somebody, she doesn't cover their bullshit, but then covers other people doing the exact same thing. Like she's saying this about Erika Kirk, that Erika Kirk has no credibility because she's lying about her, her not having a boyfriend when she clearly did. So she must be lying about Fort Huachuca because this is what she's talking about here, Fort Huachuca, right? That this guy said he saw her there, but the guy who saw her there has zero credibility. It doesn't even make sense she'd be there, right? So, like, this is what a piece of shit Candace Owens is.
Intimated that to you, like Andrew Colvett has a memory, Erika Kirk has a memory, and then the surgeon has a memory, right? I should also mention that the surgeon said, and again, this is through a third-party person, so it's not a direct line between me and the surgeon, that he absolutely did not violate HIPAA when he suggested, hey, maybe it's a frangible bullet, but rather that it was a three-way call with him and Andrew and Erika. I don't know if he's telling the truth or if Erika's telling the truth and Andrew Colvett was flying blind. But, there's a disparity. And as I was looking at this, I sort of went, oh, wait, yeah, I do remember that Charlie told me about Cabot Phillips dating a girl. For some reason, I thought it was Sammy, the other girl that he had a crush on. And I was like, was it?
The other girl that Charlie had a crush on. So she's saying now Charlie had a crush on Erika Kirk. So this guy, Cabot Phillips, he worked for Daily Wire, and he played basketball with Charlie Kirk. Said Charlie Kirk was so strong. He seems another sort of gayish guy. Seems effeminate. He seems to be maybe possibly moving into this situation, back with Erika or back with, TPUSK or something. I don't know. But the important thing to know here that it's Erika Kirk and Cabot Phillips and Charlie Kirk used to hang. And he would know about Erika. So they knew each other long before and knew about each other long before, because she said that Charlie had a crush on Erika. And so, like she said, that one of the girls that he had a crush on was dating Cabot Phillips. And she thought it was a different girl. But now she remembers all of a sudden. Like, why wouldn't she remember that?
Erika, that's so funny. I'm trying to remember this. And
let me just go back a little bit.
Or if Erika's telling the truth and Andrew Colvett was flying blind. But, there's a disparity. And as I was looking at this, I sort of went, oh, wait, yeah, I do remember that Charlie told me about Cabot Phillips dating a girl. For some reason, I thought it was Sammy, the other girl that he had a crush on. And I was like, was it Erika? That's so funny. I'm trying to remember this. And then I saw a picture in somebody's TikTok of Cabot Phillips. I hadn't seen him in a very long time, and he works for the Daily Wire. And he had a beard. And that was the thing that he kept saying to me, as this guy had a beard. He was around 37. Anyways, I sent him the picture of Cabot Phillips, and he says, yes, that's the person I remember being at the base. Now I'm like,
okay, so, it's funny that it's not funny. It's obvious. Every guy that he sends her, right? So he is the perfect person for her bullshit, right? It's amazing that Cabot Phillips was the very guy that I saw a guy with a beard. Well, is it this guy? Yeah, it is that guy. And so he just tells her whatever she wants to hear, and she's not responsible for any of it. Well, I got a source. This is a source. He's an ex-military guy. He's a source. And I'm not saying this. He is. Like, she can, disavow anything he says later on if it's disproven. And, this guy has zero credibility. He's a piece of shit, all this stuff. But, this is fucking what Candace Owens does to her audience, right? Like, it makes it sound like she's, actually saying something, like she has something, that Cabot Phillips was there because this clown says he was, right?
Like, that would be totally crazy. Maybe, again, this could be a lookalike. And so.
What do you mean it could be a lookalike? He didn't see him. He agrees with everything that you say. He wants to be famous. This guy's a fucking clout chaser. He's out there making shit up like this to seem important. He made shit up. Like you said, it's incredible, this guy's life, all this stuff. None of the things that he said has been documented. He was a medic, according to fucking Gemini. He wasn't like a soldier out there, a fighting soldier like a SEAL or some shit like that. He was a medic, which I'm not, shitting on him for that. Whatever. You need medics. But he's not. He seems kind of like a fucking wuss. He doesn't seem like a big, tough army guy. He doesn't seem like a guy who would discover cartel tunnels or the cartel would be after him. He he said his what looks like a 5'5", 5'4" wife trapped him in his fucking house, even though he's special forces, and beat the shit out of him with a hammer, and then took his keys and his phone, and then did all this other stuff. He's a perpetual victim of all these people and powerful agencies, and he's just making up stories for fucking, either sympathy or money or just whatever. Like, he's not a fucking, none of his stuff is believable. He's the boy who cried wolf like 1,000 times, right? And when you said, oh my God, this is amazing, yeah, he just tells you what you want to hear, and it's good for you because you want views and you want the #1 podcast, but none of it's real.
I messaged Cabot Phillips and did not get a response. I messaged Cabot Phillips twice today, actually, and asked him if he wanted to have an off-record conversation because we can't just take that to the bank. Like I said, I am terrible with faces. So if I saw Cabot Phillips, I had to just from memory, there's 30,000 other people I would say it was definitely him too. And I can't trust Mitch's vision on this, but at least
you can't trust Mitch's vision on any fucking thing. He's just telling you what you want to hear. But this is where she waited weeks before even divulging that Erika was lying about this shit with the boyfriend, because she was in a truce with them. Because this is what she does, right? She can't tell you that Charlie Kirk, fucked her over and took shekels over their friendship and took shekels over his responsibility to his audience and to the college students and all these things because he wanted to be the biggest fish in the pond. And now he's fucking done because, had he not started reverse himself on Israel, the same thing would have happened to TPUS Gay that's happening now would happen to him. People are very fickle. People will turn on you over one little fucking thing. I've seen it over and over again personally. They can love everything about you, but did you just say you believe in the round earth? Well, fuck you with your firmament, right? And so, that's how people are. And Charlie was hemorrhaging his audience because, Israel couldn't do it, couldn't propagandize whatever, no matter how many shills they sheckled up, no matter how many influencers they sheckled up. And Trump, and even people are turning on Trump, even as hard as it is for some of them. It's QB Shaman and these other guys, people are turning on him. And, because that's what happens. Crucify him. That's what happened to Jesus. People would turn on fucking saints, right? There are people that were eating free fish and bread from Jesus and praising him and seeing his miracles and bullshit, whatever was happening. And they were yelling, crucify him, right? People, you can't trust people. You don't serve people, you serve God. Your audience is not your friend. Your audience is not going to be there. They're not grateful for what you do. What have you done for me lately? Most of them are desperate and needy and unappreciative. And people in general, your own kids, you do what you do right by your kids. You feed them, you clothe them, you love them, you do whatever you do, right? Whatever level you are as a parent. You can be the best parent in the world or a mediocre parent, even a bad parent. And, especially nowadays in America, your kids will all be like, oh, you suck, and be grateful for none of it, right? I mean, you invest in their lives, you do it because you're supposed to, not because you're looking for some return. But, you should get a return just based in, when you invest in something, there should be gratitude, and there should be some, in other cultures there is, but not in America, not in modern day culture. So I don't know. Let's wrap this thing up here.
Is compelling, and I was like, let me do some basic fact checks here. What do I even know about this guy, Cabot Phillips? And I know that he does the Morning Wire at the Daily Wire, and I checked, and he's missing from the Morning Wire. He doesn't do it daily, but he does it enough times.
All right, who gives a shit? I have to, she just sucks so bad. So this is what I'm talking about, and this is where we're at. And, like she's a lying sack of shit like the rest of them, because she is, and that's what you have to be this thing. They can't tell you the truth, right? They all have to, based in who's sheckling them up, and also who their audience is. I mean, people lie more to just please their audience than anything else. I mean, some of it's to do with shekels, but, you're getting shekels from your audience, right? Like people, like that commenter who said, all these motherfuckers are out there saying it's self-defense. When, first of all, they should be saying it looks staged and fake. I was in Costco yesterday, and my wife was returning something, and then we were going to meet up. And I was doing, like going through the aisles and getting things. And there was this kind of overweight mom who looked pretty grumpy, and she's just like in the middle of the fucking aisle. I have one of those big things where I'm getting paper towels and toilet paper and like fucking, big things that go in one of those carts that like hard to push around. And she's just sitting there in the middle of this aisle with like the frozen foods. And she has like a toddler, like a 2 or 3 year old daughter, probably, 4, maybe, I don't know, because her daughter's talking up a storm. Her mom it seems like your mom just looks grumpy and miserable. And she's in my way. I'm like, whatever, get the fuck out of the way. I didn't say that, but I'm thinking it, so. And then they're going past me, and, I'm not looking at them, but I hear her daughter, she busts out this perfect rendition of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. He knows when you are sleeping. She's like almost like she's a trained singer, like in a toddler's voice. And I'm like, it's like almost like this surreal thing you see in some shitty movie. And I go around the corner, and there's, whatever I do, the next aisle I'm going down, they have the maple syrup on the corner, and there's a young couple, and the wife goes, and they might be dating, I don't know, fuck, whatever. She goes, oh, we need some maple syrup, and they got these big jugs, and the guy's like, I don't know. That's a lot of maple syrup. Yeah, you're at fucking Costco. There's no travel packages here, right? There's no, like, airplane fucking, this is Costco. Everything's like fucking in gallons. He's like, but that's like $15 or $12 or whatever. And I'm like, that's kind of a steal at half the price. It's organic. I'm thinking it, but I'm having this moment where I'm like, is this even fucking real? Like, is this fucking real? When I'm like, I have that experience quite a bit. I'm like, am I in a fucking Joe Schmo show? Like, this, like, are these all people I'm in fucking just NPC? Like, it's not like I'm in one of these bad movies where this kid sings perfectly, and this couple's having some fucking retarded conversation like you see in some shitty beach show. Like, it happens to me quite a bit. Like, I'm like, are these people even fucking real? They look kind of like they're just NPCs bumping into shit. Like, if I go around the corner real quick and I look back, all these people going to disappear. Like somebody said that we're in this simulation, and you can tell like you're in Walmart. Like if you look around, like there's only people around your aisles and your section. Like the whole, all this what you see. If you go real quick, you see that the store is empty, right? Because they haven't populated it yet. Anyways, I mean, there's that. Okay, so I want to move over to the ice shooting, but this is an Elon Musk posted this. So this is some Tesla robot with some spaceship behind him, and some, AI-generated horror. And here they are like fucking, the fuck? They're going to make out for a little second or two, and then this is a Tesla guy riding a fucking horse because, this is Elon Musk posted this shit, so... Then somehow he turns into a cowboy. We're going forward, and this guy comes in, this motherfucker, and that fucking guy with his fucking demonic fucking horse, and and then they're back together. She's pregnant with his Tesla baby, and they're just so fucking romantic. So there he goes, giving a fucking hug, and Whatever. You can marry your vibrator now. Ladies, you can marry your vibrator. There's the guy, she's coming in with a Tesla army. Just going through this fast because whatever. I haven't watched the whole thing before. I only watched the very beginning. Just, it's obsession with horses, which you wouldn't need if you're a robot, right? And look, there's a big robot. There's another one. Just they're all like that's all the robots are getting laid. And then there's all this stuff here and then this that. All right, Elon. So Twitter, I just did the voiceover. I was talking about dumb fucks. So like, you're not gonna hear the voiceover until the end of the video, but it's fresh in my mind, and I'm talking about dumb fucks and how I was a piece of shit, worthless piece of shit, but because of doing the Sajmark system, I was able to grow and evolve as a person, which I expect other people can do and kind of almost need to do. So this right-wing piece of shit here, Twitter recommend this. For more than 3 minutes, the anti-ICE agitator impeded a law enforcement operation with her vehicle. And let me show you the fucking video here. Okay, so this isn't a law enforcement operation. It's a legal Trump bullshit thing, first of all. But liberals are fucking annoying, and not all of them. Probably the majority of them aren't. Like, most of them aren't this angry, and most of them aren't this whatever. Most of them are kind of pussies and, nice, educated, but, not really aggressive. And the ones that you see, the ones that are out there, the ones that are maybe paid shills or agitators or whatever, I'm pretty convinced these people are all acting and they're part of it. But the real angry liberal women, maybe possibly even lesbian women, most lesbians are fairly reasonable and, they're like they're less emotional than, just in general, than like regular women. Not that I'm saying anything bad about regular women, but they're just, my experience with lesbians where they were, women that there was no sexual tension, so you could just be chill with them, that were kind of a little bit like dudes. They made, they were more rational than, not that dudes are so much better than women. I'm not even saying that. You know what I'm saying? That meme that I showed you where the guy was explaining what it's like to answer a woman's question, right? And, and not that like I've had plenty of women who aren't like that, but, women are more emotional for a reason. They're also more loving. There's also, they're more nurturing, there's these things. So they're more communal. So there's these differences. But anyways, just because the liberals are annoying, the ones you're seeing, doesn't mean you get to shoot them in the fucking face, right? Just because this woman's being a piece of shit, the ICE are also being pieces of shit. This is not like the liberals are the bad guys and you're fucking ICE guys are the good guys. You're a piece of shit Trump fucking worshiper that fucking voted for a guy who's fucking up the world, and you're too stupid or too arrogant or too proud or too fucking stubborn to figure it out, right? So like that's, I have more problems with right-wing people at this point. I don't get liberals here. So I deal with right-wing dumb fucks all the time, and I'm fucking over it, right? Like, I don't care. Just go somewhere else. There's plenty of places for right-wing dumb fucks. The majority of the truth community, and I don't even want to call these people truthers, because if you're a Trumper and you're a right-wing person, you're not a truther. But, what we call the truth community, what is considered the truth community, is filled with right-wing dumb fucks. Go over there, right? You don't deserve what you get here because you haven't earned it through your confronting your own bullshit, right? But, these liberals are fucking annoying. I totally agree with you. Just like you're totally annoying. And, the liberals don't get to shoot you in the face either. Charlie Kirk was a shackled up piece of shit. Does he deserve to be shot in the neck like that? Maybe even you could make a case that he did because of fucking, how much damage he helped to contribute to by backing a genocide and, hundreds of thousands of babies and innocent people being killed in the Gaza Strip. But either way, this is, as a law enforcement person, you can't, just go shoot somebody in the fucking face, right? whether, they deserve it or not. Maybe they even do deserve it. Look at these fucking masked up thugs. All right, so that's the first thing. This video goes on for another 3 minutes. Keeps on. There's the taping each other. There's the lesbians near the wife, and she's taping the guy who's going to shoot her. He's going to taping the thing. He's walking around the car here, and so people are out here. This is where she's going to. She said, "I'm not mad, dude." These guys say, "Get out of the fucking car." She backs up and goes to go, and then stops there. Fuck you for stopping it there. That's the best part. That's the best part. I'm not saying if they do get shot in the face that you can't enjoy it a little bit. I'm saying they just don't deserve it. It's not good police work just to shoot a libtard in the face because they're annoying. But if it does happen, you might as well just enjoy it, right? So this is even worse than I thought. The ICE officer who killed a Minnesota woman is a war veteran who spent over a decade working for DHS. Jonathan Ross shot and killed a 37-year-old citizen, Renee Nicole Good, during a confrontation in Minnesota earlier this week. No, murdered. It isn't killed, it's murdered. You fucking wussy pieces of shit, right? Just, sack up and call it what it is. Before Immigration and Customs Enforcement Officer Johnson Ross encountered Renee Nicole Good on a snowy Minneapolis street, fatally shooting her as she tried to drive away during a confrontation. He spent years working for the government and serving in the military. Now, as Minneapolis reels from yet another tragedy making national headlines, Ross is at the center of the debate. Blah, 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 blah. Trump administration figures, including Donald Trump, have defended Ross and claimed Good was an agitator. Viciously ran over Ross, which of course isn't true. Some onlookers, female neighbor. Somebody told me, and I'm not sure who or what, or something I heard, or maybe something was sent to me, that his wife left him for another woman. Like his wife went lesbian on him. So that, and I'm not sure. I don't have any of that. So he won some medals here. And apparently, after he returned home from the war, the U.S. Border Patrol in El Paso, Texas in 2007 and worked for the agency in 2015 as a field intelligence agent who gathered and analyzed information on drug cartels and human traffickers. That year, Ross joined ICE as a deportation officer based in Minnesota. Why there? Why would they have that in Minnesota? Why is Minnesota the hub? I mean, yeah, they might have some, legals there, but not as many as fucking these other states, whose job, he testified in a case recently, was to identify and arrest higher value targets. Ross testified here. So, this idea that he's a part of all these thugs that Trump hired, it's even worse than that. This guy's been sitting around and working here, and all of a sudden now he's like, hey, we can go shoot liberals in the fucking face, right? Because Trump's letting us do it. So it's like fucking way worse. In June, an incident, Ross broke the window of a car when the driver refused to exit. And this could be just information they put out there. Like, this could be a complete actor, and this is their bio they put out. This might not have even been true. I don't know. This might not be a real bio. But, him breaking the guy's window and trying to grab him and being dragged 50 yards when the driver hit the gas. I was yelling at him to stop over and over at the top of my lungs. Why are you trying to do that, right? And so they say here anything about the lesbian part where it's Good's wife and these things. So anyways, so that's even worse than I thought. Like, he's training people. A male voice says, fucking bitch. I assume that was him. But, that's that guy. All right. So that's not good. Like, it's even worse than I thought. Because again, if this was some thug that Trump just hired, but if these are people who've been in the agency and know the rules, and now they're like, hey, fuck, we can do whatever fuck we want, Trump's in charge. And, if he doesn't get investigated and he doesn't go to jail, then that means these guys all realize they can just shoot liberals in the face. And, they want to, right? Okay, one of my viewers sent me this. I just forgot to turn the camera on. So this is the second time I'm doing it. And here, they're going to do a 3D, third dimensional. Get out of the fucking car. No! And here, so there's the first, this is the gun pointed at the driver. And we've seen this. The 3 shots, and he's going to show the third shot here. First shot, the gun's there. Second shot, third shot. So the other thing here is, I talked about this. Like when a receiver is, when a quarterback's throwing to a receiver, especially across the middle of the football field, the quarterback has to look in front of the receiver to make sure there's not a defender there that can intercept the ball or light the receiver up, the defenseless receiver who's catching the ball, and the defender comes in and just, nail, puts the fucking a brutal tackle. You can't get your receivers hurt, right? And even more so when you're discharging a firearm, you have to make sure that what's on the other side of the target in case you miss. Or the bullet goes through her head or goes through her neck or something, or, depending on, what if the car hits his gun or whatever, any number of things, the rear view mirror. He pulls the trigger and it goes into some fucking random bystander. And as much as they want to say this is self-defense, if he shoots some kid or somebody else who just, some kid inside a house, or, the bullet can end up anywhere. Or he shoots the dog, they can't say that was self-defense. I mean, this guy was training fucking people, right? Look at where he is here. This is fucking execution. And, it's hard to miss from there, but, she's in a moving car and who knows what happens. Okay, third shot, like he's just right fucking there. And again,
shame! Oh my fucking God!
And then he's on the phone already. So, but then they put it into this thing here. And so you see, like, he didn't have his card, he didn't have the gun drawn yet. That's not accurate. Like, that's not when he drew his gun. Like, he drew his gun right there when she started to come at him. And then look, he's just right fucking there, right? And again, it's pretty fucked, but whatever. So this AI bullshit. Look at these cat sleeping bags. It's fucking great. So I don't know what's happening. I wonder how many fucking gallons of water and electricity these things are fucking using up. Using AI to create this bullshit. Somehow, I don't even know where I saw this, maybe on Facebook. I think it was an ad on Facebook. They were trying to sell these things, but they're not real. Like, these are, it's just an AI-generated thing. Okay, so one last thing here. Peter Ducey. Well, here, you can, it's not, I covered this, I noticed this the other day.
President Trump, but I'm having a hard time seeing here. I see the American flag lapel pin. What is the other lapel pin on?
Somebody gave me this. You know what that is? That's called a happy Trump. And considering the fact that I'm never happy, I'm never satisfied. I will never be satisfied until we make America great again, but we're getting pretty close, I'll tell you what. This is called a happy Trump. Somebody gave it to me. I put it on.
You put on a pin of yourself? Like, this guy's fucking, he's losing it, and he's just going farther and farther into, this is what happens when people go senile. They just lean in more and more into their bullshit, right? His narcissistic bullshit. Let me show you the happy Trump pin. So, he doesn't look happy here. That's his pin. I noticed this, I don't know, my last video, you guys remember? I don't know. He's got the flag. This bullshit flag thing. I always talk about there's one good flag. There may be a few good flags, but the really great one is the pirate flag. Like the pirate flag's the only flag, even though I'm not a pirate, I appreciate it. I mean, as a kid, I wanted to be a pirate, but, it's just a great fucking flag, right? It says it all. Then there's maybe a few flags that are, all right, they're pretty cool. But flags, for the most part, are bullshit, right? All that fake patriotic stuff. But this thing, the classic fucking Trump pin, the guy's losing it. And he's got this angry little Trump here. He doesn't look happy. He's got his bullshit hair. But, this guy's he's falling apart completely. All right, so let's wrap the video. I got a voiceover, some stuff, important stuff you're about to hear. My wonderful voiceover. But that's it for the happy Trump pin. Okay, so I want to move to the comment section. I just want to talk about dumb fucks for a little bit. I've been talking about this, and people said I was being arrogant. Few people, who didn't understand what I was saying. Or being, whatever it is, condescending, whatever it is. And it certainly there's that, like arrogance and condescension is like something that you would say. But, these are all things people say, like you're jealous, or you're a shill, or these, boilerplate statements when you say a certain type of thing, right? So, I was an incompetent person, like just underachieving, angry, no purpose in life, no goals, no future, didn't get the American life, just, self-sabotaging, just, not good, like just going nowhere, loser, just a piece of shit. And then I did the Sajmark system. And so I am very clear about the system of Sajmark, the master of the system, the method, the transmission, the cleaning, the teachings, and all the things that, like, changed my life for the better, changed me for the better significantly. Where, before I couldn't get my college degree. I dropped out of college 3 times. I couldn't hold jobs for more than about a year, some of them like slightly over that. I couldn't sustain relationships. I mean, certainly dating relationships, possible marital relationships with women. I just, wasn't capable of doing anything like that. Nothing long-term for jobs or, for anything in my life. There's nothing that I could stick with, and just bouncing around, waiting tables. And, that was getting burnt out on that, just with talents and abilities, and just not recognizing or developing any of those, just basically a loser, right? I saw that I was transformed by this Sajmark system. And, my capacity to love, my capacity to tolerate pain and boredom, and, all the things I couldn't deal with before. I used to have, like, things would just make me, if I had like one problem, like one thing that would, it would just, it would almost like I would glitch out. Like I would go have to take a nap I couldn't deal with, like a car problem or, whatever it was, right? Like, like a, whatever kind of, like just a bad day. And I just could deal with like one thing. Like, I could only deal with like one bad thing, a day, and, and I'd get overwhelmed, right? And I did stupid shit because I was undirected, and problems with authority, uncoachable, and, I wouldn't listen to people, arrogant, thought I knew more, all the bad qualities, right? Just, being a punk and these things. And then, when doing the Sajmark system, I saw that how that all got reversed. And since that time, I've been on a spiritual path, and I've evolved. And I, you can see this even from my videos. It'll be hard for some people because when you're, when you're in a lower position, just like anything else, like if somebody's on a higher level than you, they know more about a certain thing than you, or more about life, or they're just older, whatever, somebody who's lived a good life, there's things that you just won't know yet, right? And there are things inside of me that came out, qualities that I had, good qualities that I had, unrealized potential, because that's what a good spiritual journey will do for you. And so, I don't look at that. I mean, I look at me just being certainly lucky and blessed to have found the Sajmark system. And, even with that, most people would consider my life a failure. I don't have contact with my kids. I haven't had, much of a career to speak of. But I feel like, it's been an extraordinary success spiritually. because of, some of the baggage I came into this life with is gone. One of those things is a deep sort of resentment towards God, a bitterness towards God, some victim consciousness, whatever, different things. Like there's things now that I have that have replaced bad things. And again, from the Sajmark system of meditation. So like all those things like are, I'm very aware of. Now I was smart. Like I have a high IQ and it's more than IQ. IQ is not a good, I've lived a lot of different lives. I know I've had many experiences here and I've had some good spiritual lives in the past. And, there's some evolution there that I came in with. There's some spiritual capital I came in with. And there's abilities that I had. I'm a good athlete, funny. I got some, qualities. I can be sweet. I can be affectionate. I can do things, positively for people, like in relationships. Like have the capacity to love, that was not really, it was there in a kind of latent form. Have a good heart that came out later, which I never would have said that before I did Sajmark. But there are these things that were there that could be developed upon. But where I started off with, I was like lower 10% of the population. Especially since I did have abilities that were not being utilized, right? But I was just a piece of shit, like just a non-productive, piece of shit sucking up resources and not contributing. Just a negative person, making the world worse, right? And because of that, I know that if I can do this, and like I said, I had some reasons and some abilities that would, make me suited for a spiritual experience that I've had here. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. Like, again, some people don't have the talent I have, but they don't have the baggage I had either. Like they didn't have, years of past lives I had some really bad past lives and some other things, some scars that I came in with. And, like anybody can do it if they applied themselves. Again, I lucked into having some amazing spiritual experiences that made me buy in. That gave me irrefutable proof that the Sajmark system was something special, and that spirituality was the way to go. So, again, a lot of blessings that I've had. But, in that I realized that how important this opportunity is because just of what I've experienced and the things that I've seen from the Sajmark system. And I know that I can't do anything to convince people of that because people just want to do what they fucking want to do. And, I don't really get all that frustrated, but the level of dumb fuckery around here and remedial lifestyle, and, people just don't want to get it. And they don't want to, the warning signs are there and they just don't want to see it. Collective warning signs and individual warning signs. You're being told all the time you need to change and you're just not doing it. And, like I said, I'm in the change business because of this blessing that I have have to communicate this to people. And I don't expect them to do anything because people are basically worthless, right? Very few people change and are willing to change, at least in the current climate without, some major catastrophes. Because of whatever experiences I've had, I had this Shruti, this program was downloaded to me that became the Pockets of Future. Before that, Shruti counseling, and, I wrote books, and I, all these things that I've done. It was like, some kind of divine revelation that I had. I've had these other kind of spiritual experiences and things. And so, I'm obligated to express these to people. And one of the things that I can't stress enough is that what people think about what spirituality is, which is being a nice person, bullshit that you learn from your indoctrination to your religion, especially for Christians, but all religions. People think, oh, if you're just a good person, these qualities. The Ten Commandments, that's for fucking criminals, right? Like the Ten Commandments are, some of them are thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, right? So, thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife, these kind of things. And, they're all basically people who are either pieces of shit or criminals. If they got to tell you not to murder, then this isn't about spiritual life. This is just teaching you, being a good person is not even the starting point of being a spiritual person. Being a good person in the material world and having good character qualities, that's what you're supposed to come into your spiritual journey with. Like you shouldn't need to be told, yeah, don't kill anybody, don't steal anything. That should just be something that you have already. that you going into it, you know those are things that are wrong. Like you just feel it, and that, oh, this is bad. I shouldn't do this. And so that's how bad the Christian religion is, and the Jewish religion is that they're teaching, trying to teach murderers and thieves and rapists how to fucking, just be good people. Never mind be spiritual. And the true spirituality is you're giving up everything to serve God, and every thought you have, people can't even imagine what I'm talking about. And I have kind of experienced it. I've experienced it, and I understand it. But it's overwhelming. Like that kind of commitment where you're giving up all your sovereignty, you're giving up all your freedom to choose to do the wrong thing, which people, don't think that they have a freedom to do the wrong thing. But people, when they talk about freedom, that's what freedom is. God doesn't have freedom. God can't stop being God. God can't be like, I'm just going to fuck off today. I'm going to go get drunk and fucking slap some hooker. And, God can't do that shit, right? God has to be God, right? Like there's no, I'm just going to go indulge in bad shit. I'm not just going to watch something that's not good for me. I'm going to take some fucking drugs or eat some food that I know I shouldn't. I'm going to go, dwell on feeling sorry for myself and give myself a good fucking, talk victim consciousness, any number of things. I'm just going to be dishonest and lie to myself and, do bad things and make excuses and give myself permission to have a fucking shitty day where I'm doing bad shit, right? And so, a spiritual person doesn't need to be told any of these things because they already do whatever God wants them to do. They follow God's orders exclusively. You don't do anything else. And, people can't even imagine what I'm talking about. And so, but I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I understand what needs to be, what needs to be done. And it's, far beyond my capacity to do, at least at this particular point in my life. Like right now, I'm just kind of, just setting myself up for my next existence. I don't want to do anything that's going to cause me problems. I don't want to add to my spiritual burden. I want to continually move forward. But, that idea of like minimum spiritual accomplishment comes from really devoting your life to God and giving up some things that you like to do. And a lot of that is just bad shit that you like to do. And, no one wants to hear that shit. No one wants to do that stuff, right? And so, this is where we're at as a culture. And I could say these things, and I could say things personally to people if they said, all right, what can you tell me that I need to do? And I would tell them, and they'd be like, fuck you. I'm not going to give that up, right? Like I worked as a counselor. I've seen this over and over again. I see how people are. And so that's what we're working with. I was thinking about this. We have our two dogs. Buddy and Tulsi. Now, Buddy was a show dog, and he grew up with 13 other dogs, and he was maybe a little bit bullied, 13 other Papillons. We got him during COVID. He wasn't really all that socialized. He's kind of a pussy. He's a nice dog, but he really loves to get petted, like in a way, like I could pet him for 8 straight hours, and he would, and he would still look at me like, wait, you're not done, right? Like we could be petted forever. And, we feed our dogs well. We don't believe in veterinarians. I mean, the veterinarian system is such a money-making racket, and they give your dogs poisonous shit even worse than they give to people. And, it's people feed their dogs really bad food that's cheap. They give them the cheapest food because they're dogs, and oftentimes you can't afford better food. But then you end up having to take your dog to the fucking vet, which is a fortune. They overcharge you. The dog is a patient that doesn't say anything, right? So a lot of times the fucking vets don't even like animals by the time they're, done dealing with their bullshit, right? And so, we feed our dogs well, and leftover meat, we have, lots of hamburger we got from our cows and things, and we give them like leftover, like quality meat, things like this. Whatever it is, raw foods and raw meat. And Buddy is such a pussy, like, he's getting this great food, and he just comes about it. And Tulsi, who dominates him, Tulsi is not 100% Papillon. She's a 13-pound dog. She's like a thug. She's killed all kinds of fucking animals. She comes back. She's got 3 baby bunnies in her mouth. Like she's chased these ducks and almost caught them in the pond. Like she's fucking great. I got these video clips. And she's like a little thug. And she, kind of bullies Buddy, even though, Buddy's taller than her. But she's, she weighs 13 pounds. He weighs about 7 or 8. And, Buddy, the one time, and he doesn't like, I'll leave the door open for him to come in, and they stop at the door, and he just like fucking, he's just he kind of is a pussy in different ways. He pees on the floor a lot, And so he's not bringing a lot to the situation. He's a cute little dog. But as soon as we go out to the pasture, he runs off. He ends up being on the other side of the fence. You know, we could have coyotes here, especially during this time of year. And we have these fence pastures where he just has to stay in the fence. I've cut down all the brush around it so like we can see a clear view. And they have free range to run around, you know, within our eyesight. I scan the perimeter for coyotes and things, so like, you know, keeping them safe. I put energy into, you know, keeping them safe. And, you know, he just always runs off to the driveway. You know, our dog, Farley, who started, you know, she got old, I couldn't see. She was the first Papillon I met. Really cute, sweet dog. But she would just follow us around. But sometimes we'd be walking. But one time we were at a park, and there's two roads, and one road leads to a bridge. And the Papillons naturally heel. They'll just walk behind your heel. But sometimes we'd be walking, and Farley would get confused, and she'd start following other people, like going the opposite direction. And she'd just be walking behind them like they were her owners. Oftentimes she'd approach people because I guess before I was with my wife, somebody gave her a hot dog at the beach. And so she always thinks people have food for her. Which, you know, that's when people do stupid shit like that, and it fucking affects your, you know, people just feed your dog shit, and we're like, well, we don't feed them, like, we don't fucking, you're going to come over and clean up the diarrhea she's going to have tonight when you give her some fucking bullshit Oscar Mayer wiener, right? And so she ended up wandering down our driveway. She took a left, or she went across the bridge into a parking lot, and luckily she had a tag on, and somebody called us, and we went and got her. But, you know, other than that, she was, you know, a good little dog, but she, you know, sometimes would get confused, and she walked down our driveway and got hit by a car. And so Buddy keeps on walking over there when there's, like, sometimes coyote poop on our driveway, and he wants to go over there and pee, and we keep on yelling at him no. He was on the other side of the fence the other day, and we're like, just, Jesus Christ, Buddy, you know, so, and he just won't fucking get it, right? Tulsi, you know, was a little bit sort of like, felt like she was the dominant one. She's kind of a bully and whatever. But we were at the beach, and she loves to catch. We throw golf balls down the beach. We have a little bouncy ball for Buddy. He kind of learned to do it too, and she really loves it. She goes nuts, like it's her favorite thing. And I threw the golf ball, and there was a dog that someone had staked to the beach, and it was a big fucking giant dog. I don't know what kind of dog it was, but it's huge. And it broke free, and when it saw our dog, came running for Tulsi. And usually our dogs just outrun. Fat Papillons are really good athletes, and they just outrun the other dogs. We had these dogs that were chasing them. It was hilarious. Like our dogs, they ran by us and they ran back, and then they turned around. They ran back towards us, and these dogs weren't anywhere near them, and we had to scoop them up. We were like, "Look, the dogs are fucking 50 feet behind you," because they just outran them, and they're like nimble. But Tulsi was sort of pinned against the ocean. And she just stopped, and the dog just came running up, and it had its mouth wide fucking open and was about to just close on her. And I yelled no as loud as I possibly could, and the dog stopped and ran off. And Tulsi always kind of realized, oh, like I am a little piece of shit, and I better, if I don't stay near these guys, I'm going to get eaten. And so she's been a lot better about like wandering off and shit like that. But I was thinking about this when I went for my walk just a little while ago. And like, you know, it's a little bit frustrating. I enjoy the dogs, you know, but they do things like, you know, when we're coming in and I bring them out 5-6 times a day, you know, depending on how, I mean, I like to go for walks, and it's, you know, I'm getting exercise and I enjoy their company, but, you know, they have a good life. They're not leashed up. You know, I'm observant, protective of them, and, you know, they wander around, and they have a big pasture. We have like, you know, multiple acres there, and just, you know, they're able to wander around and smell all kinds of things and chase rabbits and, you know, dig up mice, and they like have all fucking kinds of fun, right? Smelling coyote poop and peeing on it, like fucking, you know, they're in dog heaven. And then when it's time to come back in, you know, it's time to come back in, right? And, you know, I could be better trained. I don't have fucking trained dogs and, you know, whatever. But like, you know, sometimes they don't. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you ungrateful piece of shit, you know? Like, you know, I mean, they're just, you know, we had a nice walk, and like, don't wreck it. Like, it's time to go in. I got shit to do, and you know, you gotta, you know, like you got a good life. You don't appreciate it. And, you know, I say the same thing about my kids. Who, you know, my kids, they, you know, there's a period of time where my wife and I were trying to tell them about the vaccines, and they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear any of this stuff. They just knew more. They were doing their own research, which I'm glad they were doing, but their research sucked, and they were becoming such sheeple and shitty about it. And, it got to the point where we would have conversations and they would say shit that I don't agree with. And and they didn't like it when I would tell them what I thought, right? So it's a one-way conversation. And, it becomes a thing where it's like, Jesus Christ, it's no fun spending time with you guys. They're not coming to me for, like, I have a vast amount of information. My wife does as well, things that it would do for healthcare, all kinds of things could help them in life. But they want to go out, make their own mistakes, and make their own decisions, which is fucking fine. But, I changed diapers for like fucking 10 years. I made all kinds of meals and I did all kinds of shit. And, I have stuff to offer them. And they were like, well, we'll just go out and fuck up our own lives on our own. I'm like, sure, that's great. But, I don't really want to be a party to that. Like, why do I want to spend time with you with your, I don't like sheeple, right? And so, what I'm saying here is I'm over dumb fucks, right? My kids are still younger than I was when I stopped being a piece of shit. I want to say stop being a piece of shit, but I started being a better person and working on my spiritual path, right, when I was 29. And so, people make their mistakes and they do what they have to do. But, it's getting very late in the day as the system collapses. And I'm just over dumb fucks. I just, whatever it might be. Again, you can't make people do anything and whatever. You just throw out information and, but people are going to see the way the world they want to see it, and they're going to suffer what they have to suffer because of their warped view in reality. And, there's nothing you do about it. So that's my perception here. That's where I'm at. I'm kind of burned out on the whole thing. And I just, I believe humanity can change because I've experienced my own personal growth and change. But they don't want to. That's it. It's a matter of motivation. And maybe the motivation will be there when the system collapses. But that's the only thing I see now as a possibility. There's nothing else that's going to get people to do what they need to do. They need to be fucking, it needs to be a fucking complete ass whooping. Just a crushing, what a piece of shit you are, just fucking hammer the shit out, just getting hammered every fucking possible way. Where in the Whispers of the Brighter World, he said, beseeching God for forgiveness for more and more aberrant behaviors. So that's where we're at. And, with that, let's get into the comments here. Okay, took a break and ate dinner and did some other stuff, but I just want to say, this is kind of a big deal, what I'm saying, for me personally. They have those stupid hats that says Trump was always right. And, Trump and a lot of these right-wing fucking pieces of shit, Tucker Carlson and all these other people, they jumped on truther narratives after being like Fox News piece of shit and Trump was always a piece of shit. They got on board in some of these things. But, they're not truthers and they're not right. They're just people who are, they're posers and pretenders who parroted other people's work, just like Alex Jones used to steal legitimate truthers' work and claim it for his own. But, I have a small thing that I do here, and, numbers of viewers don't matter to me because, again, I don't want dumb fucks. There's a 10% cap. My audience is hard capped at 10% of people who have the consciousness level to, break free from the bullshit indoctrination stuff. And, then the way I just present information and, in a way that rubs a lot of people the wrong way or whatever. But, in all that, so the numbers don't matter, but the quality of the work I do or whatever it is. I had a viewer who said, you predicted COVID. And I said, and then said the video and timestamped the video. And it was an old video where Bill Gates was talking some shit. And I said, well, it looks like they're going to roll out some kind of pandemic. And I said the same thing that I said when right before COVID hit. It's a good time for people, I don't suggest things, I always say that. People have to, maybe they're suggestions, but they're not advice. Suggestions in the sense, maybe people want to think this over. But what I said was, it's a good time to boost your immune system. It's a good time to figure out, what works for you and your immune system and how to naturally boost it because there's some bullshit coming. And I didn't even remember that, right? So there's so many things that either I predicted or I had a take about something and I turned out to be right. It's happened over and over again. It's happened in the truth community where I said one thing and the majority of the truth community said the exact opposite, and I turned out to be right. And this is from other people. I forget about these things after I put them up. Like, I don't give a shit. And it used to mean something to me. Like, it meant something to me, after the divorce and, years of being an underachiever and just failing and shit. It was nice to be successful and, say things that had value, right? It'd be a conduit for the divinity to flow through me, and working on that for a number of years. And there's something about the Sajmarg meditation that, there was two stories. There was a really good high-level park basketball at this some park somewhere in Amherst, Massachusetts, near UMass, which featured a number of Division I type players. Like, there's just good basketball. You find these courts where the high-level basketball players go. And sometimes you'll see an NBA guy. There's a guy who used to go to Hartford with this guy, Rick Mahorn, who played for the Detroit Pistons. And, so it's other guys. Marcus Camby used to go, who also was an NBA player, who ironically played at UMass. And, I hadn't played basketball in probably about a year. Maybe I shot a few times and played at work. There's with the kids in the treatment center. But I didn't go to the courts in a while. And I went to group meditation on Sunday, and I went to play basketball, and there was like a Sunday day where there was just a lot of great players there, high-level players, and like I was the best one, and I had played for years. Like, I was just turning 30, I was getting to the point where, there wasn't much, there was like a year or two before I wasn't playing at all, right? Like, I just kind of left it behind me. Like, you just, you get older. And I just, like, they talk about in sports where the game slows down. But I was fresh from meditation, and I just, like, I was like on a different level, in terms of my efficiency in the way I played. Like, before I put too much emphasis on, making, like, great athletic plays, getting dunks at a court and things like that is huge when you play park ball. And these sort of highlight plays you see people feature, things you'll see on YouTube, athletic plays, or, you're going for like some kind of a pop. But like, I didn't play like that at all. Like, I just was concerned about efficiency and winning and just, enjoying myself because I hadn't played in a long time. And I was just like, great. And it was, the pieces that I didn't have inside myself, whatever wasn't there when I had wanted to be a basketball player, college level basketball player, some of these other things that I couldn't just, I couldn't get it done. The things I was missing were there now, like the things I needed internally. When you have goals, whatever it might be, and you're going to try to achieve something that's hard to do, especially something competitive, in the material world, certainly in the spiritual world as well, but I'm talking about material things. There's some part of you that has to change and rise up to it. Like, you have to come through. You have to evolve. You have to pull some kind of, like I said, some scars, something internally inside yourself that you didn't know you had, and you have to rise up to different levels, right? And, I wasn't able to do that, but now that I did the meditation, I could. And not that I cared, and I really enjoyed it. That was the other thing. I hadn't enjoyed basketball like that in years. And I was like, wow, I should do this all the time. And then, I didn't, but when I did go play, I really just enjoyed it, and I played much more efficiently, and it wasn't some big deal if I lost. It was a light thing, right? The other thing, when I was like 7 years old or 8, I don't know, when I first played Pee Wee soccer. And, there were some older kids. There was a group of us that were my age, and then we had a few older kids on the team. And we had a guy who played soccer in high school. He's kind of a nerd. He'd probably just graduated high school, and nobody played soccer back then. This is the 1970s. It was just becoming popular. And he, at the end of a game, if a game is tied, and soccer often is tied because it's a low-scoring game, you do these penalty kicks. Like, these penalty kicks are, I don't know, something like 15 feet or so away from the goal. And, there's a little kid in the goal, some goalie that's like these goals are like, 16 feet wide. You only got this little kid in there. And, he said everyone should practice this. So I went home and we had this metal fence, like one of those metal fence with the spikes on top of it. These old fashioned fences, probably like 5 feet high, it was, 6 feet high. And I took something and I wove it into the metal about a foot and a half off the ground and like right next to one of the fence poles. And I put the ball so that like it would be, where the fence pole that I was shooting at would be that one side of the goal. And I just kept on kicking it for like weeks. I come home from school and I practice. And I was able to hit the square like pretty much every time. And so, when I was a small kid, like I was always, my family grows later. My family, my brother grew, when he went to Vietnam, he grew 3 or 4 inches. After I graduated high school, I grew 3 or 4 inches. There's some longevity in our genetic, our genetics. And so, I was one of the smaller kids on the team. So I'm some little kid, and there were some older kids, and kids who were my age but bigger. And so the coach had everybody like practice, and I went out, and every time I kicked the ball, it went right like a foot and a half away from the goalpost, about a foot and a half above the ground, 2 feet above the ground, like wherever that square was. And it was basically indefensible, like especially for some little kid. Unless some kid, they figured out that's what I was doing, and they stood right there. Like they would have to stand like right in that side of the goal, and then the whole other rest of the goal would be open. And you could still miss it because you're a little kid. The kid ball was fucking big, and you were, whatever. But I was able just to put the ball there, like place it in the same spot. Like I hit every turn, I did better than anybody else on the team, because I was the only one fucking practice, right? And I realized that, if you practiced, you get good at things, right? And that's, everyone kind of knows that, but doesn't know that. And so the years I put in meditation, the years I put into all these things that I do here, the meditations is at play, the way I think about things, pattern recognition, because I'm dyslexic, the talents that I have. But after a while, you get good at things. You just get good at them, right? Because, you're practicing, you're putting effort into it, and people can do all kinds of crazy shit. You see some of these halftime shows where women are balancing plates on a fucking unicycle, like shit like that, crazy Cirque du Soleil shit. Humans can do things that seem impossible, right? And, on the spiritual level, it's even more so. You can penetrate to levels of consciousness that would blow people away, have experiences and see things that will blow people away. But the farther you go spiritually, the harder it is to connect with other people. And, like Jesus wasn't that evolved spiritually. I mean, it's, not saying that to be a dick. It's like, it's a true thing. But, where he was, and then they took his teachings and they dumbed him down. So, he was wherever he was, and they took his lower teachings and a bunch of the Old Testament fucking stuff that isn't even spiritual, and mixed it together and got something that they could really sell to people. An easy pathway to heaven, and promises of things that, appeal to people, right? But, the higher you go spiritually, the less you can connect with other people and really even communicate to them. And it's, a sad state of affairs. And I've said this over and over again. People have unlimited, infinite potential spiritually because there's divinity within them. But they don't, they don't do anything with it. So, there's that. And there's like a rare opportunity right now where there's a need, to bring people up to a higher level that nobody really deserves. And, and it's an opportunity that almost no one's going to care about or want to take. And it's fucking, it's really bad, right? Well, anyways, let's get into the comments. All right, I had one more comment here. I have to go through the comments. So this was, it says here, exactly, it's a miracle that her corpse, to be precise, didn't run over anyone else as the car bailed out of control down the street. The ICE dude's irresponsible behavior endangering way more people. Yeah, I think I said that myself, but, not just with the bullet. That woman fucking, I mean, I didn't even realize that when you die, which of course, you don't know how your body's going to react. Like you can Your leg can lock up, the muscles can lock up and go rigid. You know, who knows how long, you know, what her reaction is. You know, there's no longer a brain there. And, you know, if her foot's on the pedal, it doesn't mean that she's going to go limp necessarily, right? And so, and if this, again, I think the whole thing's fake, but whatever. If it wasn't, you know, just, there are so many bad things about that, right? Okay, here, I'm just going through the comments. You lost me criticizing Candace. Subscriber lost. She is asking valid questions that deserve answers. Yeah, like fucking dumb fuck. That's not what I said at all. She's throwing out bullshit, like complete lies, fake thing with no consistency, being being hypocritical or being hypocrisy in terms of the way that she presents things for certain people, and she's lying to her audience and manipulating them. And she rolled out this fucking resource that's a piece of shit, but it's just not that. It's the Egyptian planes and everything. And, you know, I mean, you're going to leave anyway because you're a dumb fuck. Like, you're just... That comment shows you don't understand my point. So if you were going to weigh what I say against... I mean, weigh my point, my point about Candace Owens against what you believe, and you'd be wrong anyway because, you know, she's full of shit and everything I say about her is true. And everyone can see it that's like half awake. Like, it's, you know, her audience has got to be, you know, retarded, you know, at this point. It's just so bad. Anyway, a person wrote this. I didn't understand the comment at first, but then realized what he's talking about. Cozy with white people. Isn't he married? Who's more cozy? He's talking about Don Lemon saying that. Jesus Christ, I spelled self wrong. You know? I'm looking at the video title. Is it this one that I spelled it? Nope. Maybe I... Anyways, it seems like I fixed it already. But he's talking about Stephen A. Smith, that Don Lemons was saying Stephen A. Smith is too cozy with white people. Don Lemon's married to a white man, like a fucking white dude. Like, you know, obviously he's a gay dude, but he's white. I think Stephen A. is divorced, and I'm not sure, and I don't know what race his wife is, but, you know, you can't be more cozy. You can't be more... I'm going to say it anyway. You can't be more cozy to white people than having some guy's white dick in your ass. So you can't get it any more intimate than that. Okay, so here's a great comment from somebody that I have to defend the ICE agents here. They also aren't trained to deal with paid disruptors. They make special work trips to hunt them down, interfere with their jobs. If you roll in the dirt with pigs, you get dirty and sometimes you get dead. This person has fuck around and find out in their title, which is, you know, classic. You know, you're a dumb fuck. Like, this is not, you know, again, and I don't want to make it about me or you or any of these things. You know, in terms of wrong behavior shouldn't be like always, well, what happens when it comes back to you, right? You know, that fucking story, you know, they came for this group of people and you never said anything. And they came for that group of people and never said anything. And then when they finally came for you, there was nobody left. You know, that fucking stupid shit. But anything they do to these people can and will be done to you, like your group. You know, certainly Trump has no problem when he's got to turn the screws, or whoever comes later, or if the Democrats get in. You know, when the Democrats then have power and they start targeting you and you're whining them like a bunch of... It's not going to be fuck around and find out then, right? You know, like you're riding the wave of like your... You know, it's like you have fucking the big bully right now, and then when the tides turn, which they will in 2 years, or whatever year from now, in the midterms, and then again in 3 years, and the Democrats are in power, but even then it's just fucking wrong. Like these, you're when you become a person in law enforcement, you have power, and you know if you abuse that power. And you're allowed to abuse that power, and you're told to, and you're in fact ordered to abuse that power, it fucks everything up. And it doesn't stop with some fucking liberals. And, you know, just because they're annoying, like I said, doesn't mean you get to shoot them in the face. Okay, so that's it. There's no more comments to deal with here. I did fuck up the title. I mean, I didn't fix it, but I just found. And so I had I was searching through my videos, and I left the search up, so it was all old videos. But I really butchered that title for whatever reason. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.